You don't want any part of this.
Hey guys, welcome to Eternal Midnight. I'm here with Chad and Aaron, and we're going to be talking about our thoughts on Far From Home. And we're going to spend the first sort of half of the video talking about it without spoiling anything, and then we'll make a clear cut off, and then we'll start to talk about more detailed plot points and stuff that we thought, and our thoughts on that. So, what do you think, Chad?
Oh, I loved it.
You loved it?
I knew going in I was gonna enjoy it. And just it just blew me away. I mean, it was a great Spider-Man film.
Yeah,
It was exactly what I wanted it to be while we're staying in the spoiler-free section. It was exactly what I wanted it to be. I got to see some badass, like probably the best Spider-Man action we've seen to date.
best
The
superhero action,
mhm.
period, I'd say.
Um,
Um,
Definitely, probably the biggest thing I liked out of this one, which when compared to the other ones, it's going to sound redundant, but compared to the MCU, it's new. I mean, basically, this is the first time Spider-Man was quote unquote on his own within the MCU. Every other movie, he's either had some help or he's interacted
mhm.
with another hero, but this was the first time he was truly he's on his own. He doesn't have, Tony to fall back on anymore. So it was just him and his wits and what he's all of his experience he's gained since he started out right around Civil War.
That's what I didn't get about people who called him Iron Boy Jr. in Homecoming, because the whole arc of Homecoming was setting him up to be an independent hero in the sequel. And then they did that, so like that's all I wanted was for them to continue that arc. Otherwise, it would make Homecoming entirely redundant. But I mean, I should have had more faith in Watts. And now after Far From Home, I know his name off by heart because
Hmm.
he's earned it. He's better than the Russos, though.
Can you believe there's still people calling him like Iron Man Jr. and all that stuff?
I
Like you
know.
didn't you've seen the movie, right? Like he's on his own
And he's so
and
intelligent in
holding
this.
himself up. Yeah, I
He
mean,
doesn't need other people for that. He's the most intelligent person in the room. They point that out.
he
Hmm.
was leading at one point. I mean,
Exactly.
he could very well be the next Tony Stark, but like make it his own thing if that makes sense, you know? He's
Well,
not
He's
even
depending on anybody
mm,
anymore, you know?
well, I almost felt like that being the next Tony Stark almost had a double meaning. Almost what part of it was like that iconic hero to the world, that like world known hero like Iron Man was, but also on the flip side to us audience, like who is the next face of the MCU?
yeah,
And
it goes
like
against everything. It goes against everything Feige said about the face of the MCU, which I
yeah,
think is hilarious because he said it
okay,
was going
but
to be Captain Marvel, and
she's
we
not going to be the
no,
face.
no,
She
no.
wasn't built up. It's not
That's
happening.
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying this movie put because it basically went, well, Iron Man's been the face for the past 10 years. Spider-Man is the most popular hero we have. People love him. He had such a connection to the face of the MCU. He's going to be the one going forward. But the whole thing is it's a continuation of what Tony said in Homecoming, which is do everything I wouldn't do, don't do anything I would do, stay in that middle ground and be better than I am. And I think that's what he is going to do.
Hmm. He even
I
said,
really
I think a interview came out earlier this week, I believe, where Holland openly said he'll do Spider-Man forever. He'll do it as
I
long as
know.
he.
I
I
love
think
that
he's.
guy.
I think what was the exact words? He said as long as he lives, or like as long as he can walk, or something
Yeah,
like
as long
that.
as he can walk.
that's dedication.
Well, it's funny because it's almost like back in the day, people didn't want to get typecast as superheroes, but nowadays, a lot more people are like, why not? We're going to go down in history. I mean, Robert Downey Jr., that's going to be his legacy as being Iron Man. Same with Chris Evans as Cap and Hemsworth as Thor. Um, yeah, I mean, if you're basically in the MCU and you're one of the main heroes, you're a legend. So it's like, why wouldn't you want that anymore?
That is their legacy now, like you said. I mean, when they appear in other movies now, people are gonna be like, oh, that's the guy that played Iron Man, that's the guy that
Yeah.
played Spider-Man, so on, you know?
And I think Tom Holland's going to become more iconic as Spider-Man than the past whoever did. Like
Oh,
Exactly.
by
Like,
far.
he's already had more appearances. He's already had more suits, which is brilliant because they're doing fan service galore with these movies, and I love it. And he's already had more interactions with other heroes, which they never did. So I think he's just blended into the superhero genre way more than they ever could have.
Hmm.
The only other Spider-Man that had any sort of interaction with another hero, and this is like off the bat, kind of like very loose connection, is Maguire with Harry's Goblin. You know?
Oh yeah, that was the closest thing we got to a team up with.
Yeah.
And it was with a really Spider-Man centric character as well.
And that team up was literally only there just to kill Harry.
I know.
Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened.
I have to say that's something about this movie I loved as well as the characters, because I know John Watts said he was inspired by The Breakfast Club, and it shows because I mean MJ felt like that girl in The Breakfast Club. I forget her name, but you know the distant one that he did say he was
Al-
basing her off of.
Ali Sheedy.
Yes, her. She felt a lot like that character. I think
She
Ned was
did.
even better in this
She
movie.
didn't. She felt that way in the beginning. It almost. I was gonna bring this up to you earlier, but I forgot. It felt like she definitely went through a character shift at about the midway point of the movie. It seemed like she kind of dropped the whole
I wouldn't
snarky thing she had, and she dropped down to almost being just like a normal one of the gang teenager.
I wouldn't say she dropped or anything like that. I'd say that
Just opened up a little bit
yeah,
more.
That's what I mean. Her attitude of like even at the beginning, what's up, dorks? That way of her acting and talking went away at the midpoint of the
she
movie.
still acted like that around other characters though. It was very much just she lowered it with Peter, which is what highlighted their chemistry, I thought.
Yeah, but I'm saying it in a good way because
Yeah, yeah.
that's
Oh
what
no, no, I know. I'm
that's
just
what
saying.
I didn't like about her in the first one because I'm like, all right, this girl is irritating me. But again, I'm also older than you two, and I'm not I'm not the same age you guys are, so I don't
I
connect with teens on the same level in movies that I used
no,
to.
I do know girls like her at university, and I did know them at school, and she's a very realistic character, and I think her dropping her
All
god,
of the characters are super realistic. I
yeah,
mean,
they are.
super easy to relate to all of them.
Definitely. I mean, I
I
think it's
was
made for our age group, but my
I
biggest
was
thing.
expecting I was expecting Betty to almost be a little more bitchy. I was extremely happy that they kept her very normal per
Oh yeah.
se.
But the biggest thing for me was that I did say this when Homecoming came out. People shit on MJ when she had like I think a total of 10 minutes screen time or something. Like she had less than Iron Man, who barely had any screen time, and both of them got slated for having quote unquote too much screen time and being so annoying when they were
Oh,
in a fraction of the movie. So I think judging them off Homecoming was always a little bit jumping the gun.
and
Um,
people say you and I nitpick too often. That
I
is
know.
fucking reaching. She
Liz was
barely
the
did anything. But that
yeah,
was my complaint was she barely did anything. I wanted to see more of her. So it's
but
like,
that's the thing. Liz was the main girl of that movie, and what I loved though is that Liz was the stereotypical Peter fawning over a girl kind of thing, and
mhm.
MJ is much more of an independent character, which I loved. She figures out his identity, which is in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler. And she's way more intelligent than I think we've seen in the Raimi movies or with Liz. I wouldn't say against Gwen because Gwen was brilliant, but compared to the Raimi movies, I think she was a lot more intelligent than Kirsten Dunst ever was as MJ. Um, she
God,
was
I hate her.
Oh, I hate her too. The chemistry she has with Peter is a lot more believable. It's that sort of angsty teenager thing, though. It's not like Peter and Gwen had, where it was like two adults really getting along. It's very much that sort of awkward, we've never been in a relationship, how do we act sort of thing. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding.
I think they nailed everything they were going for. Like it feels like a teenage movie, and they just happen to have a really cool setting of traveling the world, which I think
Mhm.
was one of the
That
highlights.
was genius. I
I
mean, there's a
know.
whole bunch of settings, there's a whole bunch of locations.
It was
You
better
get
than
to
seeing
see.
him in New York for the millionth time.
Right.
Mhm.
Because we got
It's
I
him in
mean,
the
and he was
suburbs.
in New York for a little bit, obviously, but like
Yeah.
I like Spider-Man not being in New York,
It always
for an
changes it
entire
though.
movie.
Yeah, because we've had him in 5 movies in New York City, and then I think Homecoming was refreshing because he was in the suburbs, which brilliant in the comics, brilliant in the movies because it's quite funny. But then when they took him abroad and he's out of his element, I think that really highlights his character as well because he
I was
doesn't know how to
reluctant
act.
I was rewatching Homecoming, and it was at the part where he's going after
Oh, the van.
Shocker in the van, and he
Yeah.
shoots his web out over the golf course. And he's just like, "Well, shit."
That's right out of the comics. I love that moment. And this was too, I think, because he does go to London and he goes to Paris on Daily Bugle stuff in the comics. So him
Right.
traveling the world, it was stripped right from that.
Watts is
And
definitely drawing a lot of inspiration from the comics.
oh, definitely. There's so many things I'll talk about when we go into the spoilery stuff that are references. But no, I mean the character feels a lot like Ultimate Spider-Man. Like when I'm going back now reading the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, I read him and Tom Holland's voice because they're basically dot for dot the same character.
Yeah.
So I think Watsy's drawing on Ultimate for Peter himself and the setting that he's in, because I mean the MCU always draws on Ultimate, but I think he drew on 616 for the villains and he draws on 616 for the sort of world around him in terms of the stories he jumps into. But it's weird. He's like splicing the two universes together, and it's interesting.
And
I'm
it's so
down.
seamless too. I mean,
Yeah.
he's doing it perfectly.
Oh,
But
definitely.
he's
I
also
mean,
changing it up enough to where it's not like just ripping it straight from the comics.
yeah, and I mean, I get that Ned, MJ, and Harry, no, not Harry, Flash, they're not comic accurate, but I think they're still brilliant characters in their own right.
With the
Let-
MCU,
but let-
they've got wiggle room to change it up, you know?
Oh,
Well, it's like
definitely.
you said, let these characters be their own thing. I mean, the MCU is not the comics. The MCU basically takes inspiration from the comics. So it's like, let
Hmm.
these characters be new and different. Like, I honestly, same as we said in our Homecoming video, I enjoyed Flash in Homecoming. I loved him in this movie.
Oh, he was brilliant in this.
He was
Dick Flash.
hilarious. And he was doing exactly what a teen like him would do. The whole movie, and this isn't a spoiler because I mean it doesn't affect the plot in the slightest. He's basically doing vlogs and every city he's in, and it's like that's something someone like him would do. And it was hilarious the way he was doing it too. The
Love
humor
how-
they
flexing it
incorporated
in
it.
the cringiest way possible.
How did you pronounce that, Chad?
Vlog?
Vlogs? What is a vlog? Come on,
A
Chad.
Vlog, whatever.
Get with
Hey,
the
you
times.
still call the snapping the click, and it
Ah,
was the shit out of everybody else. So
this
I don't wanna
anti-English
anything.
sentiment. No, I definitely am the blip they've got these
That
really
annoys me. Of the blip. What is
yeah,
that?
Well, I
That's,
mean, I get it because nobody alive knows Thanos snapped his
that's
fingers.
not Thanos' snap. That's Hulk's the blip. That's bringing them back.
The one
to
that brought them back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's-
nobody
Like,
knew about any snap, so it's
Oh,
like
that's
they
true.
just-
But that's what I love though is in this movie they really play on the teens journalist side as well that they introduced in Homecoming, and they use that to come up with these really childish names and performances and the slideshows and stuff. It was hilarious. I think everything about this movie is relatable, and
that
I think
scene. That one scene cracked me up so hard when they showed somebody filming everyone coming back during the basketball game.
oh, I know. I think overall, like, just to wrap up our spoilers thoughts, I think this is the most relatable Spider-Man movie to date. Maybe that's because I can relate to this one more than I could the others personally, but to me, that's how I'd see it.
In the UK.
What do you mean? No,
You just related because it's on your home turf.
no, not that. I meant the
Me
characters
and Aaron are on
themselves.
this side of the ocean, and this was your movie. That's why.
No, not the set, like in the American setting as well, but it's just the way they're written and performed. It's like I know people like Ned, MJ, and Harry, and I know some people like Peter, but
You keep calling Harry. You're talking about right?
Flash is just like how I'd picture Harry. That's why the sort of his parents neglect him and he's rich as fuck.
Yeah,
I was so sad at that one point. I felt so bad. for him.
He's basically Harry in this movie.
If they don't
could be.
introduce Harry, he's gonna be like the Harry stand-in.
Yeah, that's how I
And
felt.
I'd be totally
they're
fine
gonna have
with
to
that.
become friends.
Because they
Or-
do seem,
like,
yeah, they do
enemies.
seem like the type who will become friends if they go to the same college, you know?
Well, they
Yeah,
did in the
like-
comics anyway.
Well, right, but I'm saying if we're not going to get Harry, they do seem like the type like, no, I mean the actors, like the way
Oh,
they
yeah.
interact with each other, they definitely have that vibe of once they're out of high school, it's like, all right, let's drop the bullshit and we're either gonna be friends or we're gonna leave each other alone.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, yeah, I can see that. I mean, they have good chemistry, but I think everyone on the set has chemistry. But yeah, I mean,
casting in Spider-Man is just it's I couldn't ask for anybody better.
No, I think people shitting on it because it's not comic accurate, but then they love the rest of the MCU. It's very picky on what they want to be comic accurate.
And that's
The
because
Mandarin was fine, but Spider-Man Far From Home didn't follow the comics.
or
Fuck
I
Yeah,
for being honest, RDJ's Iron Man isn't comic accurate, but
a
he's
lot
made
of the
it his own thing.
characters,
So
yeah, a lot of the characters in the comics became more like the MCU versions. And so people will point out these more modern runs and they'll be like, look how accurate it is. But the comics were influenced by the MCU, so it's not
they draw off of each other. I mean,
exactly. So I don't think comic accurate needs to happen. I think people need to realize that when they go in to see this. Flash doesn't need to be, MJ doesn't need to be. They're brilliant characters in their own right because Watts has brought them to life in a way I didn't think was possible.
Well, all they really have to do with, especially with these characters, is take what they were in the comics and just make them for a modern day, but you don't have to do a direct translation. So it's like you take MJ, Peter's love interest. Bam, turn her into a modern teenage girl. Flash,
Yeah.
he doesn't need to be the tall blonde jock. He can a bully. I think we talked about it in one of the earlier episodes. A bully nowadays doesn't have to be the tall blonde dude who
I
pushes you
didn't
around. He
I
can
didn't
be
know
the
anyone like that.
yeah, he can be the verbal jerk. So they're taking they're taking what these characters were and just modernizing them. And especially for the Spider-Man movies, damn, they've got them down in my opinion.
Oh, definitely. But yeah, I think we should move on to the spoilery stuff and just
please.
Do
sort
we-
of the rest of the
Do
movies.
we want to give our rankings now or after the spoiler review, after the spoiler part?
I'd say no. I give it 4.5 stars. I thought it was brilliant. One of personally, I thought it was the best live action Spider-Man, best MCU movie. That's where it
I give
sits
it
for me.
a good 4.5 stars as well. I mean, there's a couple things I would have changed or added in or whatever, but I mean, other than like a couple nitpicks we'll talk
Yeah.
about, it's amazing. It's
Oh, definitely.
spectacular. It's whatever adjectives you use.
Sensational.
Yeah, I hate to sound like just following the crowd, but yeah, 4.5. I mean, this is just one of those movies where, I mean, while it's not perfect, and we'll get into it in a few minutes, this is one of those movies I don't see people walking out and just going, oh, this movie had this wrong and this wrong and this wrong and that wrong and that and that and that, and yeah, don't go see it. No, this is one I say go see it. I mean, I enjoyed this far more than I enjoyed Endgame. Far,
Yeah, I
far,
did.
far more.
I had a bigger grin on my face throughout the entire movie. With Endgame, it was very much limited to the third act. With this, I was happy from the get-go until the very end of the movie. It was a ride.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Definitely.
boys, with 3 scores of 4.5, our average score for this movie is 4.5. Big surprise there,
nice.
right?
All right.
Would
so,
you like me to change it up? I'll just give it a 1 star because I can't relate to teenagers.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised you liked the Spider-Man so much because of. Yeah, I'm not calling you old, but you are older, so it's a little bit harder to relate.
Well, we're Generation Z, you're millennial. This is not made for the millennial audience, I don't think.
Well, it's because honestly, and we'll get into it in the spoilers, it was fun. This
Yeah.
movie wasn't bogged down with bullshit politics. It wasn't bogged down with bullshit drama or hidden messages or anything like that. It was just a fun class trip where one of the kids happened to be a superhero who had to help save the world while
Even
on
though
his
he's-
class trip touring Europe.
Yeah. So I think we'll just take like a quick sort of cut here, and then we're
Hugh,
going to
stop.
talk about it with. No, not. We're not going to stop recording. And now we're going to go into our spoiler discussion about Far From Home and what we thought about everything that's a little bit more specific regarding the plot. I want to jump off and talk about the mid-credit scene. I don't want to wait on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Because Parker's identity is now out in the wild by J.K. Simmons, J. Jonah Jameson, and that sentence alone I never thought I'd say. It's just, I don't know
That
where you
was-
go with that arc. I mean, it's huge.
What I liked about it was it was a perfect fitting, I think, for the end of Phase 3 because it mirrors how Phase 1 started with Iron Man, with Tony Stark announcing to the world, I am Iron Man. And basically, the one character we had in the MCU who was struggling to protect his identity has now been outed to the world.
Yeah.
It's like a mirror image of it. He's like, he didn't want to be the hero at first. He didn't want to save the world. He didn't want to have his identity public, and now everything's just been pulled out from under him.
And
Mhm.
what I love is it's something that I don't think the comics would have the balls to do. And I don't know if the comic, I mean, they've done it in Civil War, but they immediately undid it. So I'm really hoping the MCU goes forward with this and they don't undo it and they take Peter
I hope
Parker
he
to that
owns it.
place.
I
Yeah,
hope he's like, I didn't kill him, but yeah, I'm Spider-Man.
yeah, like Shield could just, I mean, Shield are immediately going to go, well, he didn't kill him, so he wasn't the villain that Mysterio was, so you can't arrest him. He's a hero, and they'll treat him like an Avenger, I feel. So he's not going to go to prison. I don't think he'll be on the run because I think Shield will have his back in that regard. But what I do think is we're going to see J. Jonah Jameson go to manhunt after him, and I think we're going to see Scorpion finally going after Spider-Man because Homecoming ended with him desperate for Spider-Man's identity. Now he has it, and I don't know if Matt Gargan's the kind of guy that wouldn't kill his aunt to get to him. So I think,
I don't want Marissa Tomei to die, but on the flip side, I don't know. This Peter has already been through quite a bit.
she's
I don't
she
know
I don't know if I
him
want.
to go through it.
Well, no, I don't think she. Well, she might not die, but I'm saying Matt Gargan will go after her. There's no way he won't. I mean, he's the kind of sleazebag character that is now going to see who Spider-Man really is under the mask, and he will either maybe he'll be like, oh well, he's just a kid, maybe I shouldn't, or he'll go full psycho and actually hunt down his family and his friends and try and get to him in that regard.
I'd
And
like
they
to
might
see that
survive, but
because that'll give us because we said it in the spoiler-free area. The first Homecoming was the suburbs and Washington D.C. and whatnot, and then this one was over in Europe. I'm excited to see this version of Spider-Man do some swinging and fighting actually in downtown New York. I'm not saying I mean, yeah, the first 5 did that, but I'm excited now. Now we've had 2 movies away from it. Now I'm excited to see
oh
this
yeah.
Spider-Man do some stuff in downtown New York.
I think
So,
Far From Home led into that very nicely because the whole
mhm.
thing is that he's now become his own hero and he's become the Spider-Man we know and love. He's shown that even though he's in this world of heroes, he's still the iconic Warcrawler that we know and love. And that is when he starts having the web swinging in New York City. And I think the way that you go from there is you lead very nicely into Far From Home. And my idealistic starting would be very much like Raimi's planned Spider-Man 4, where the movie opens up with him taking down a smaller B-list villain, and then it segues into a bigger sort of plot line. I think with him, he was planning Vulture, Black Cat, and something else. So
Mhm.
for
Kind of
this,
like how Spider-Man PS4 was with Fisk.
yeah, I'd love to see something like that. So I think him taking down one of the B-list villains, and then they team up with Scorpion and someone else, that would be a pretty good way of handling it, I think.
Just
Uh,
throw in, if we're doing Scorpion, throw in one more person that we could add on to Sinister Six.
Yeah, because I don't think Scorpion as a villain could handle his own movie personally. So I think it would have to be a tag team sort of deal. But yeah, I think the way that Jameson set up the next movie, someone has to come after him for his identity. You don't just do that and then ignore it the next movie.
Hmm
I
He's
then-
gonna have a
hope-
hell of a time when he goes back to school too.
Oh
Oh,
man, that's gonna be fun. Is he gonna go back to school right away?
I
I
think
mean-
so because I mean I think we're gonna see Flash's reaction as well. I mean,
Flash
I
is
have to
gonna.
show
I almost wish Flash had been there when it happened. I would have loved to have seen him basically
Just
shit his
standing there on the
pants.
street corner.
Like da 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 da. I've been insulting Spider-Man this whole time.
He'll either think that or he'll think, oh, Spider-Man's a total dweeb. He'll either flip one way or the other, but it'll be interesting to see the conflict.
I think he'll fall more towards becoming cooler with Peter.
Yeah, I can see that happening. I think it'll be a reluctant thing. I'm really hoping though we'll get more from his character because what I loved in Far From Home is they sort of tease that he's much more complex than just the whole I'm a bully and I hate you, with his whole family life being in the shit. Because you saw
Yeah.
that a lot on the trip.
That was so depressing. Everyone else's parents are picking them up, and he just has a driver with his name on it.
That's why I keep calling him Harry though, because it's a very sort of Harry thing to do with his character. And I've seen some people saying, well, maybe they'll splice the Thompsons and the Osborns, and I think that's a bit weird. But he very much feels like Harry's surrogate.
I would say I'd rather have the Osborns themselves. I don't want.
Yeah, I don't want them to splice
them.
it. But he
I'm-
feels like that.
I'm sad we didn't get to see like even an Oscorp tease as he was swinging through at the end or
That's
something.
what I thought. I thought it was gonna tease who bought Avengers Tower, and then it was gonna have Jameson. But then they did Jameson in the reveal, and it was just so many things happening. I didn't know what to think.
So
But
Sony is still hanging on to Norman.
I think they might be, but I'm not too
Oh
sure. I
god, I
think
hope they don't try and make a Goblin movie like they did with Venom.
no, I hope not. But what I'm thinking is that after the deal, they'll see what happens. But I think my biggest thing with this movie is how well they handled Mysterio.
Oh,
Because we
definitely.
got a really good 616 Goblin already, but I never thought we'd get not only a comic accurate Mysterio, but one that surpasses the comics. Because I really love him in the comics. I mean, his
Gyllenhaal pulls it off
oh,
perfectly.
he
I
does.
mean,
He's perfectly cast because he
Yeah,
looks like Beck.
I've
Yeah,
really enjoyed him. The only thing is just you're probably gonna hate me for saying it. I mean, his story basically was just Syndrome from The Incredibles. I mean,
yeah,
basically down to an exact
we all
T.
knew that though
Right,
going in.
I know, but there's people out there who are like, no, it was nothing like it. No, it was exactly like it. So it's like it didn't break new ground, but it treaded old ground in a new, awesome way. Like, whoever thought we would have seen characters from the original Iron Man this
I
far into
know.
the MCU again?
Like just bringing that obscure guy that became a meme all the way back to
And
the
it
modern
all
day.
of it made every single one made sense. All of them made
It
sense
wasn't
why
like
they hated Tony
convenient
Stark.
bullshit or anything. It was like this guy got fucked over in this particular way, and it makes sense.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
I love it because their goals aren't particularly evil. It's just that the way they're going about their goals is evil. It's very
Hmm.
much like Thanos in that regard. I thought that they're sort of trying to make the world a better place, but they're doing it in such a fucked up and immoral way. Like they're willing to kill a teenager to advance their goals, and I think that's why they're the villains. But
Well,
they
and
have a
even
sympathetic
don't forget.
story.
Even Mysterio did say though at the warehouse scene, he's like, I didn't want to kill you, but you dragged yourself into it, so now I have to. So it's like, at least he admitted he wasn't evil. He just wanted to be a hero, but Peter got messed up in his plans and screwed it up for him.
I'd still say he's evil because I think if you
He
weren't, you
is.
wouldn't.
He
But
he
yeah,
tried to fire a gun into his head.
I
He
know.
tried to shoot a kid in the head. Yeah, he's evil.
On the topic of that, the warehouse scene is my favorite action sequence in the entire MCU, and it's top five in the entire superhero genre for me, and I stick by that. It felt like the Scarecrow sequences from the Arkham games, and it felt like the Mysterio illusions from the comic book panels all spliced into one, and it was just phenomenal
It
watching that.
it
The
didn't
trap
feel
scene.
the only other movie I've seen that's done something to this effect in the MCU is Doctor Strange.
Yeah, it was very
Because
similar.
that did not feel like something that would normally be in the MCU at all. And that's another reason what made it so cool is it didn't feel like it was part of the MCU, and that's why it was good because it
Oh, 100%.
felt like it was completely it felt like it was in the MCU, but it felt like it was trying to break free of the MCU safe stigma that
Oh
is
yeah, I
attached to
mean,
so many of these movies.
action in the MCU tends to be brawls or just laser beams and stuff. I mean, even the Infinity Gauntlet, all the gems were basically just firing laser beams at people. I didn't think Thanos used it that creatively. I mean, he did some stuff, but not a lot. And I think that Watt's getting his hand on fucking holograms and doing more than the Russos did with 5 Infinity Gems says a lot about him as a director, and it really makes this scene stand out. Just it's such a visual spectacle because you've got Mysterio towering over Spider-Man. You've got that Clone Saga reference with all of the different spiders jumping onto him. You've got the
Mhm.
changing suits, Iron Man crawling out the grave. There's just so many things, and it's brilliant to watch. And then even if the CGI looks a little uncanny valley at times, it sort of fits in the
Yeah,
universe, so you can
I didn't
forgive it
care.
more.
It's a hologram. It can look as weird as you want it
Exactly.
to be.
That's the thing. You can do the Ready Player One with this, and it's like, all right, you can forgive it more. I
Hmm.
love that, and I think the way they brought Mysterio's tech into the movies, because what I thought was, because in the comics, he's a movie guy, so he works on like Jurassic Park sort of stuff and animatronics and visual effects, and I never thought you could do that live action because it would just be ridiculous and unbelievable, and it would break your sort of suspension of disbelief. But the way they did it in this using modern futuristic stock tech, brilliant.
That
It
was really
show it showed that Watts is a director, like an underrated director in my opinion, because it's like he like you just said, he did the impossible. He did something with a character you never thought could be done live action.
I thought they were gonna do legit magic because how the fuck do you do Mysterio live action? Like the only way I thought he would do it was magic, but fuck, he did it.
I remember when we all thought he was gonna be like a disgraced sorcerer or something.
Yes, I mean it would have worked, but Watts found a way to make it comic accurate, and I think people have to give him credits for that.
And with another homage to Tony, with
Oh
the
yeah.
idiot glasses and everything, and
Oh,
have
that
give
was good.
Peter that tough choice.
Yeah, I think like you said, that was a bit convenient, but it does make sense for Tony to do something like that. The Barf thing, the way they linked it all back to Civil War. I love-
He took my creation and he named it Barb.
And I've seen some people
That
saying
was-
his
That was like a line you never thought you'd hear in a superhero movie, but it was like one of the
was
funniest
brilliant.
parts of the whole movie because of his delivery on it. He was so enraged.
But I've seen people say that monologue was terrible because it was exposition dumping, but it was so in character because
It was-
he's
and
got a
it was
flair for the
interesting.
dramatic.
And it was interesting. That's what I was thinking too. I'm like, it is an exposition dump, but he was doing a toast, and he was toasting two specific people for their specific reasons. He wasn't going, "Hi everyone, don't forget John over there. This is what he did. Don't forget Leslie, and this is what she did." No, he was toasting. He's like, "To you for this, to you for this." No, that was not a bad exposition dump at all.
That's how you're supposed to do them. I mean, make it make sense, you know?
Yeah, and him being over the top is exactly how I would picture Mysterio being because he's like that in the comics. His character was very much like that in Far From Home, so it fit perfectly. And doing it as a toast only made it better. Plus, I love the way they edited when they were showing the characters, like the little zoom in and the black and white. Just the way they edited that whole scene was brilliant. And I mean, his twist from sympathetic, caring father figure, which was manipulative as all hell, into this like psychotic, all right, we're done, let's lift the act, let's go back to being villains, and we get to see the other side. That was
hello. He drops the hologram. First thing he says, "Somebody get this damn thing off my back."
He's like the sucker believer, and he's.
I was in shock at how they did it. I wasn't sure how they were gonna like introduce the twist. Like, was it gonna be mid battle? Was it gonna be mid conversation? I love how they did it. Like the second Peter walked out and had his back turned is when Mysterio stabs him in the back.
I noticed it at the Ferris wheel.
As soon as he started doing the please take these. Tony wanted me to make better decisions, and I'm choosing you. I was like, there we go.
Yeah,
this is when it's gonna happen.
Did you not notice at the Ferris wheel though when he pulled away one of the drones? Because that's when I went.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, yeah, something. I think it's a hologram, and that's when it clicked for me. And then when MJ picked it up and brought it back into the discussion, I was like, yeah, I thought I saw that. It was one of those things. I was like, all right, I'm a second
when he shot his web at the Ferris wheel to try and catch it, and it like bounced off. Whatever.
Yeah, I noticed something falling off, and that's what MJ picked up, and I was like, yeah, that's the moment for me.
Got ripped off or something, and she found his web shooter. I couldn't make out what it was at first. She was moving so fast. And I was like, did she just pick up his web shooter?
That whole thing with MJ figuring out who he was, though, was on the bridge. That was such a brilliant scene. I think they did such a good job with her and Ned in this movie, though. And their sort of rivalry that's starting to build. I'm excited to see where that goes.
The Betty and MJ rivalry?
No. Ned and MJ.
Okay.
I'm the man in the chair. I've known longer than you. Get off my back. Peter's mine. Maybe that's how you'll become Hobgoblin.
It could. I wouldn't.
Just severe jealousy.
I could see it. I mean, they are teenagers. It could happen easily.
Jealousy leading to hate and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be an interesting one. But let's talk about the final credits scene. Come on, what the fuck?
I don't even really. I truly don't know what to say about it. I mean, unfortunately, I knew going into the movie what it was, but I don't know. I mean, just maybe because I already knew while watching it, Fury kind of seemed off during the movie. He didn't.
Yeah, he was
really seem like himself.
But the question I'm wondering is how long has
Yeah, he
he
said
been
bitch instead of motherfucker. I mean,
how long's he been replaced though? That's what I want to know because I think it
Uh,
might be post
I'm convinced
funeral.
it's
after
post
it has to be
funeral.
after the blip though,
Yeah,
because Captain Marvel was on Earth, so she could have taken him off planet when they left, and Talos and his wife could have came back.
yeah,
I don't know.
because it is Nick Fury setting up the intergalactic shield sword. That's what they're doing. Um, so I think it would make sense to do that in the wake of Thanos.
And
You
the
know,
big thing that this showed also is with Fury being on the ship with all the Skrulls and Talos and his wife being back on Earth, this is basically saying that short of Super Skrulls showing up and them being the evil faction, the regular Skrulls as we know them are going to be the good guys.
but would you really want a secret invasion when they've already done Hydra? Because I'm not too sure I would. I'd rather see like Kang the Conqueror
Yeah,
or
but they
Galactus or something.
yeah, but they destroyed Hydra off screen. That I would not. The only movie
No, it
that did
wasn't off
Hydra.
screen.
No, okay, no, they did not do Hydra justice in my
They did
opinion.
it in Agents of Shield, and I thought it was pretty good. I would
I
have
don't
said so.
show.
It's a good show. I think they showed the downfall of Hydra in that, and I think bogging down the movies with it because Hydra aren't that interesting a villain. I don't think I would have wanted to see that. So relegating them to TV was fine in my opinion, and having it as Shield versus Hydra made more sense. But I don't think I'd want another sort of thing like Secret Invasion. I'd personally rather they did something else. I don't want a big bad either, though. Something new. Sinister Six would be one of the ways to go. Teams of villains.
I mean, Sinister Six is going to happen. I'm sure at some point. I don't know why it
Do you think
wouldn't.
Mysterio died? Because I
No.
don't think so.
Why
And
would
even
they?
if he,
Why would they sit on that look on his face the way they did?
oh, I know. Even if he doesn't, well, even if he doesn't come back though, I mean, his team's still around, so they can still use his likeness and abilities as Mysterio. But I don't think he actually did die,
I
because
don't think he's dead.
The
He's the
only thing that
master
would be
of.
less that way is like a director. That's literally all Beck was in that sense, was a director for Mysterio, you know?
exactly anyone could wear the mocap suit. But my sort of idea here is that because whenever he lied in the movie, he felt like he was off when he was acting. It felt like Jake was playing Beck as a bad actor. So when he died, I felt he was imitating like every single movie death from like the 80s or B-list movies where you slump to the ground and you slowly go, I'm dying. It's my final breaths. And that's sort of how it looked when Mysterio died. And so I thought,
You know what it felt? You know what it reminded me of? It was like the opposite of when Snoke died in Last Jedi when they did the tongue hanging out, where that was
yeah.
like, look how funny it is. And this one, it's like, it was almost the same, but it's like, no, this is a smarter movie than that. I don't think they would have gone out with such a odd look on his face if Mysterio actually died.
It
They
felt
wanted
like,
they really wanted people to pick up on, oh, we want you to think he's dead kind of thing.
but did Peter even check he was dead? Because it sort of, he went, are there any drones? So he immediately went, well, is it an illusion? Did he check for heartbeat? Did he check he was breathing?
I don't
Because
think Peter would know that though, honestly.
he's
He's kind of,
intelligent. No,
He's
yeah,
he's
but
Yeah,
with
but after he just went, after everything he just went through, you can slip up after you just fought for your life for quite a while.
true, but it's like the immediate thing he jumped to was, is this an illusion? He didn't check on it. Because if he tries to just act it and then when Peter leaves, he disappears. Because I think the big thing will be, does S.H.I.E.L.D. find his body? Because if we find out in the next movie that they didn't, then it's pretty much confirmed.
I
But
hate it in movies when they kill the bad guy and then they kick him into the river or something. It's just like, why would you do that? Like,
I know.
cover the body, burn that bitch, like make sure it's dead so they can't come back.
Exactly.
On the topic of villains, do you think Dimitri was Chameleon?
I didn't really pick up on that at first, so I don't really know, but I mean I could see it fitting because he kind of did just like. When's the last time we saw him at the rest stop?
Yeah, there was points where I thought Dimitri seems very blunt, and when they sort of went more Mysterio as part of a team, my sort of go-to was if he's part of a team, why would he infiltrate Shield alone? That's very risky. So Dimitri being Chameleon would have definitely fit, I feel, and it's
Yeah,
something they can
because he
retcon.
felt
Really
that character that character felt out of place unless it's building towards something. Like, why was this random bearded, hard ass looking dude hanging out with Maria Hill and Nick Fury.
Yeah, it did seem very Chameleon, and we've seen technology in the MCU that would work in Chameleon's favor. There's Agent 33 in Agents of Shield who wears a mask that can change her face. And then you've also got the Skrulls, their technology. So, well, not technology, their biology. And I think you could either base it on the Skrull biology, or you could take the technology that Agent 33 uses to create Chameleon.
Theoretically, you could also use nanotech, like I mentioned in the chat. I mean,
Yeah,
we've
you
seen Tony's armor. It's not that far-fetched to make a face.
No, I think that might end up being quite uncanny valley though, if they try to do it that way. I'm not sure how it works, and with Agent 33, it's sort of like a mask that I
Didn't
don't know. It's sci-fi.
didn't Black Widow already use that in Winter Soldier?
Did she?
I
Oh, no,
think
she
so.
might have.
Yeah, when she was posing as one of the members
Oh,
of the
yes, you're
council.
right. Yeah, she did. It's been prevalent. I think Dimitri being Chameleon, because if they're infiltrating Shield, they'll have the technology. Or is it Sword now? I don't know what to call it. Because they haven't officially called it Sword, but it
Let's
is.
call it Shield for now, because people are gonna be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" If we just
Yeah,
call it something on a sword.
they need to
Sword?
call it Sword, and
Nobody has a sword, James. What are you talking about?
I love it though, because now there's going to be Sword and Shield finally in the MCU, and they could easily do a Sword TV series on Disney Plus with more Nick
God.
Fury. God, I'd love it. Intergalactic peacekeeping with Nick Fury and at the helm on like a Tahiti projector beach. Brilliant.
So
I
here's something minor that I wanted to go over real quick. Earlier in the movie, we saw it in the second trailer or one of the TV spots. The one where Spider-Man is like, I don't want any part of this. What about these heroes? So he first says Thor, Fury says off-world. Okay, we all already knew that. When he says Doctor Strange and he goes unavailable, what do you think he means by that? Like he's just avoiding it, or do you think they're like, does Strange, do you think enters another dimension for Doctor Strange too? What's your thoughts on that?
think Doctor Strange 2 will take place at the same time, and he'll be preoccupied with some threat. I
I
think it
love
might
how
be because you know how they don't have the Mind Gem. That's the one they had. No, Time Stone.
Yeah,
And they don't have the Eye of Agamotto anymore. Whatever the fuck it's called. Um,
Agamotto.
Agamotto. And that's how they defend the Sanctums, isn't it? So I
He's gonna
think
have to find something new.
yeah, and I think they're gonna be swamped with threats now because Wong had to defend the Sanctum for 5 years without it. So who the fuck knows what's going on in the Sorcerer side of the MCU now?
And then so the other one was when he said Captain Marvel, and Fury looks at
don't
him and he goes,
invoke
"What did he
that
say?
name.
Don't invoke that name at me or
Yeah,
something."
yeah, don't
What
invoke that name just then.
what was that all about?
I don't know.
because
Well,
because
knowing it's
Talos loves Carol, so
knowing it's Talos, he's probably like, "You don't deserve to say that name. You don't know her." He probably doesn't know that they've met.
hmm.
I mean, so he's
And
probably like, "How do you know who that is? Don't say that name."
Oh,
and
but
how and that's the
hi
first time
Peter
they've called
Parker.
that's the first time they've called her Captain Marvel though.
Mhm.
That scene with them in Endgame was
I didn't
brilliant.
even notice that. Yeah, yeah, that's the first time they've name dropped it.
Yup.
Yeah, and I don't know where she would have gotten that name for, or how Talos would know it, but we'll figure that out, I suppose.
I honestly think the Skrulls came back to Earth at the same time she did in Endgame or something. Because how else did Fury get off the planet with the rest of the Skrulls?
Yeah, I don't think they came
That
back
and that
during
has
the
to
night.
be when they switched. I'm convinced it happened like right after Tony's funeral.
Well,
Hmm.
that's the thing. If they're setting up Sword, it would have to be in the wake of Thanos because it's the sort of thing when Nick Fury would realize defending Earth is not enough, and we need to do far more than situating a spy organization that controls the world. We need to control the galaxy. That's the
And it
sort of
makes
thing he
That's
would do.
the exact paranoid
yeah,
shit Fury's into.
and it
Exactly.
makes more sense for him to work with the Skrulls and Captain Marvel than Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, what's a ragtag team of bumbling thieves and Thor? How are you really gonna prepare something like that? So it makes more sense that it was Captain Marvel and the Skrulls that Fury would start working with post the war on Earth after everyone came back.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, setting all of that up within, I mean, because this takes place right after Endgame, so he's done that like instantly, which is impressive. Um, but it's sort of, I'm not too sure where they'll go with that because how long is Samuel Jackson going to stick around? Because he's been in longer than RDJ now.
he's been in less movies, but he's been around longer. I think I that's what I was saying earlier. I don't think any of these people are gonna quit at this point
They like have
unless
to.
they want to, I guess. I don't I mean, I understand Evans. Chris Evans said he's like, there's other types of acting and projects I'd like to pursue. I get him.
Mhm.
Robert Downey Jr., I think he's just accepted that was Iron Man, but I think he's doing another Sherlock Holmes movie, so maybe he just wants to branch out and try other things also. But I mean,
He
shit,
was
look,
also getting paid too much.
yeah. But
But
I mean, look, Hemsworth, they just said earlier this week or last week, I think that he's signed on. Hemsworth wants to keep doing it. So
yeah,
We don't know if that's confirmed though. That we don't know how true that is unless it got confirmed again.
yeah, I think we'll find out when they talk more about Guardians 3. But Happy stayed around longer. So Jon Favreau, the guy that birthed the MCU, is still around. It's brilliant. This whole movie was just fan service.
but it
And
was good fan
oh
service
no,
because
yeah,
It
there's
was
good
definitely.
just
fan
like
service and bad fan service, and
service,
this
like
was good fan service.
Do you guys catch the Spider-Man 3 Easter egg? I
Hmm?
don't know if you did, Chad. Did you catch it?
what are you talking about?
The Spider-Man 3 Easter egg in this movie? It's
I don't think
it's
so.
very obscure. It's when the guy from Iron Man 1 says, "Oh, it's probably just a flock of birds or something, flock of pigeons."
Oh yeah, well yeah, the with the Sandman thing and everything.
Yeah, that was definitely a reference to that.
Oh.
I I love that they'd reference that bastard child that everybody seems to hate just like that. I loved that moment. I mean, the whole final action sequences with the drones was great. And it
Mhm.
just
I liked
if
when he was jumping through and like webbing them all together. I just like how
oh
much
yeah,
better he's gotten using the webs. Like
it's
he's
more than the
gone
others.
tutorial off screen. Because
Yeah,
Mhm.
in Homecoming when he was like, "What do these webs do? I just want my regular webs." And now he's like stringing them together, doing like nets and like connecting them, and like in the taser webs. I mean, that was genius.
on the topic of the suit, I want to say this is the huge thing I was hoping for after Homecoming, because the whole thing with him moving on from Stark would have to be him creating his own technology and suits. So him designing the suit, leaving the Iron Spider behind, that was the perfect place to take Peter.
It
Uh,
was. I like how he ditched the Iron Spider suit.
yeah, and the tank they kept that in was fucking weird.
That was
I
so cool looking.
I didn't know how they would keep that stuff lying around, but I guess that makes sense. But then what if he invites
I
a friend
saw that.
around
I
or
was like,
something?
is that the suit itself? What the hell? How does he put it on?
What was his plan if MJ came over though? Like,
Well, they weren't
Just
really.
throw a blanket over it.
They weren't a thing, you know.
no, but
But
he wanted to be a thing. So if she came
oh
over
yeah,
at any point, then that was it.
throw it
I
in
have
the closet like every other Spider-Man has done. Throw a highly unstable nanotechnology into the
to.
closet. Hope he doesn't see it.
Do you think he'll get rid of that completely afterwards? I
No, he
I
better not. That would be so stupid. I mean,
there's
that
probably gonna come a time when he's gonna have to actually use it again.
I want
yeah,
him.
I say keep it because I mean, honestly, that suit really is a trump card. I mean, why would you get rid of it? I mean, I understand wanting to like be your own hero and whatnot, but it's like don't get rid of your like ultimate weapon just because of your pride.
I want
I
him to
hope they don't give
redesign
it
it.
to like an what's his name? The Cho character from the uh
Adamus Cho.
Spider-Man. Yeah. I hope they don't give it to him like they did in the cartoon series because I was like, oh come on.
No, I want them to I want him to redesign it and I want it to look more like the Superior costume and I want because I think that would be a pretty cool nod. Because I don't want to see Otto taking over his mind. I think that would be weird live action, but I think redesigning it would put his own flair on it and maybe, adding his own sort of stuff to the suit itself like he did with this one because the
So
new
the
one's basically a remake of the Stark one.
I
So
was gonna say, so the new suit, what was your thoughts on it? I mean,
I
honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I loved seeing the webs on the arms. I was like, yes, finally.
it looked really good live action. You could tell they
Yes, it
overlaid it with
did.
CGI though, but
Oh yeah, they did a better job on it though. I got to give them that. It looked more real than the Stark suit in Civil War and Homecoming though.
part of
At
that was
least it
the
did not look as massively perfect as those did.
part of that was the rips, the tears, the dirt, the grime, and it being battered and worn
Hmm.
over the
love
course of the
how it
fight.
got fucked up immediately. I was like, yes, like he hasn't fought anybody enough to rip his own suit kind of thing.
And I love that him
Or,
making the
like,
suit it's so much more believable because I think when people tried to recreate the Raimi suits, they had to do it in like it took them a huge time. It's not the kind of thing you could sew. It took a team
No,
of people and
you can't
it just
make something like that by hand.
no. So this is more believable. So him having like the Stark tech to do it, because I
Hmm.
think the homemade suit he had is the most believable sort of live action one, other than like the wrestling suit or the one in the Amazing Spider-Man. But the
Hmm.
Yeah.
fact that they immediately jump to these quote unquote sewn suits that they have that they're not. This one, I'd like that they integrated technology into it more, and I think that's the huge thing they're doing with this Spider-Man is they're making him more believable by integrating technology into everything, like Mysterio's illusions and his suit. Two huge things. I love it though. I love the black because that's the original costume was black and red, but it changed to blue somewhere. The original was not red and blue, so it
Hmm.
was nice homage. I mean, the
What'd
end
you
had a Steve Ditko credit, which was
What'd you think of the Night Monkey finally appearing in this movie?
I
I,
couldn't
lo-
find
I don't know
anything
why
on
they
that
call
in the
it Night
comics.
Monkey.
no. I loved. All right, so my ancestry is I'm Dutch. So the part when he was in the Netherlands in the jail, that was so
Oh, I
funny.
love
I
that.
love when he just like breaks the lock, walks out. I love how he walks past the police officer wearing the mask. The one dude just walks forward who's in jail and is like, yeah, we're supposed to stay in here, and he just closes the door and locks it again.
I
I
love
was
this.
like, everyone in the
Yeah.
Netherlands is so nice.
I love though that they find a bleeding teenager on a train and their first idea is throw him in a prison.
They just throw him in prison with like the happiest football fans ever.
But that's like their go-to. Oh, a bleeding teenager alone on a train in a superhero costume. Yep, throw him in jail, steal his mask. The fuck? I felt like
They,
a
they,
lot of.
port- they portrayed the Netherlands as so weird. I don't know
I
why.
know. My
Is that
only.
how it actually is, James?
I don't know.
Oh, I didn't know if you'd ever traveled there.
No, I haven't. My only complaint is with this movie, the only complaint I have is he didn't quip as much as he did in Homecoming. A lot of the
I
humor
wish
was
they kept
surrounding him.
the scene with the cops, like the whole "Are you the next Iron Man?"
I read on Reddit, and I don't know how true this is, but I did read that that's a mini film on the Blu-ray special. I'm not sure
Cool.
how much credence there is, but apparently that, I mean, that's what I read, and I don't know why they'd render that better than the Hulk for just a trailer and have actors and stuff. I get the feeling it is going to be a mini
The
film.
the black cops tweet about not being included in the movie, but like, I'm still thankful for the opportunity.
Yeah, I think it'll be a Blu-ray special. I hope it is because it looked quite funny. But
Mm.
Was the
I want to see more quips in the next one. But then if they do go the darker route of Scorpion hunting him, knowing his identity, quipping might not fit. Because I don't
I don't
right, like
know. I don't know if the quips have to be with this version of Spider-Man. I mean,
they don't they
I
did
think it's
the,
pretty unanimous between at least all three of us. We're perfectly happy with exactly what they're doing with him. So I mean, even if they don't invoke the quips, we've got a bigger world for this Spider-Man than we did with Raimi and the Mark Webb movies.
he
So it's
doesn't
like,
have to talk to himself all the time anymore. He can talk to other people at this point.
yeah,
yeah, but
exactly.
here's the thing though that I like. So they did it in Raimi and I was fine with it, and then they did in the Amazing Spider-Man and it was brilliant, and they did in Homecoming and I found that really funny. But the thing I love about Spider-Man as a character is that even in these sort of emotional moments and these harder battles where he knows he's losing, his sort of defense mechanism is humor, and especially when he's younger, that's what he relies on. It's not until he gets older and more age that he really drops it, and then he comes back around to it as his life gets better. But that's always been his defense mechanism, and they sort of showed that in Homecoming when he was quite nervous, making jokes, and you could tell. So I do hope they go back to it, but it made sense in the fights. Like, who does he talk to in these illusions and stuff? It doesn't really work, but I do hope we see more of it because he was quite funny in Homecoming.
Well, and in this one, don't forget, his also outlook and attitude towards life is very different than Homecoming. He just lost Tony. He just wants some time off from being a hero. So it's like he's almost on a different level of everything.
Oh,
And
definitely.
finally getting with MJ and then getting home, it was just like he was just like, you know what? I'm back. I'm back as your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And it felt, and obviously up until the mid-credit scene, it was, hey, I'm back, I'm here, and then the next movie, bam, we're in New York. Things will be back to the way a Spider-Man movie stereotypically would be, and then the mid-credit scene happened. But I talked to you about this morning. Um, I genuinely think Zendaya's reaction of flying through the city with Spider-Man was the most realistic a teenage girl actually would be. Mary Jane in the Raimi movies was always like, this is fun. Gwen seemed nervous at first, but then fine with it. But this, no, she's screaming and clinging onto him. She's
like, never
horrified.
Again. Never again.
It was perfect.
Oh, I loved it. But then immediately after, I love that they parallel Homecoming with his what the fuck reaction to the
Dude, I hope that's
bill.
a running gag, just like at the end of the Spider-Man movie, just cut off the F word with credits.
That'd
be hilarious. I would love it.
But have it at random times. Like, don't like just make it at the end. Like, just cut it off with like a black screen or change the scene or whatever. But just do it once.
I loved it, and I think this was was this the first one without a Stan Lee cameo?
Yes.
But they did give Steve Ditko credit, which I'm so happy about.
Well, he deserves it.
The artists never get.
Maybe the cameo that replaced Stan Lee with was Simmons. I mean, that's the best I could come up with if they want to have like a famous person cameo or like a fan service cameo, you know?
I hope Simmons gets a bigger role in the next one. Like, I get him being a cameo in this one, but he needs to have a big role. And I like the idea that he is the reason Scorpion gets the suit, like in the comics. That could be pretty cool to see. Because in the comics, he funds the whole thing just so you'll go out and hunt Spider-Man.
Well, he's probably kind of rich.
This is a very different Simmons than we saw in the Raimi movies, which is, damn, this guy outright publicly outed a teenager as a hero. I mean, he didn't even just bam.
Ahead of time, I was like, oh, this is a 16-year-old kid. Let's run it anyway.
But the thing is, he doesn't see him as a hero. He sees him as a supervillain that tried to commit some form of genocide in London.
I get that, but also at the same time, he's still a 16-year-old kid. This is not a grown man.
No, but
still a minor.
Yeah, I get that, but if he's a supervillain, it's sort of like, yeah, I get it. But my thing with him is that it's not the actual outing itself, it's the fact that he did that for publicity instead of going to the police.
That's what I'm saying. This is a very different, Jake. This is a very different, I said Simmons earlier. This is a very different Jameson than we saw in the Raimi movies.
It is the sort of thing Jameson would do in the comics and in those movies, though. It's just, we never saw him go to that level because he never had the opportunity. But I think seeing him have this opportunity present itself, it's going to shift him as a character, and I think we'll see him as a bit more of a complex person than the get me photos or I'll fire you shit that we got in Raimi's, which was funny, and I loved it, and I think he was perfectly cast, but I wanted more from him, and I'm glad we might get that now.
And
bringing him back.
His work to begin with anyways. Bring me these photos or you're fired. Like, you've got other work to do, right?
Yeah, but I mean, he's now what, like an Alex Jones type, like in the PS4 game? That's pretty cool.
Probably. Hot button topic newscaster.
Yeah, Daily Bugle Nut. Yeah, and I mean, him being plastered on the billboard like that, it's a bit weird. You wouldn't expect something like that, but he broke
the jumbo screen.
Yeah, because like you wouldn't ever see Alex Jones on one of those things.
No.
So it was pretty cool, but it's just seeing Peter's reaction. It was such a well shot scene, and I think they've really set the future of the MCU up with this.
Definitely.
There's no more secret identities. And I'm surprised he still had one after Civil War. So yeah. I thought like with that, not that I thought they'd do what they did in the comics, but I thought people would find out, hey, there's a teenager fighting superheroes right now.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have known. They would have just seen a guy in a spider costume because they see him in New York anyway as the Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is they probably would have had a file on him like in the Ultimate Comics. With his identity.
Notice the when you turn 18, your mind scene, but it was with Happy, not Peter. It was like, I want to talk to him. It's your ass if I don't. and almost like I own him, you know?
Yeah, they hinted at it a lot, but I never felt we got that serious moment between Fury and Peter that I wanted from the comics. But it's
Other
alright,
than
I
the
guess.
you're an Avenger, act like it kind of thing. That's the
Yeah,
closest. uh,
Fury was a lot darker in the Ultimate Comics, though, I feel, as a person. Because in this one, he is like the spy and he is a bit of a badass, but I've never seen him go beyond that line, I feel. Because when he threatens Peter in the Ultimate Comics, it is quite an emotional moment because it sort of shatters his world. He doesn't know if he even wants to be the hero, and then he's told he has no choice when he turns 18. He's being pulled into it whether or not he wants to. But I think a part of that is because it was Talos all along.
That's what I
Yeah.
was gonna say. It can still happen at some point. Don't
It
forget.
might
I mean,
it might do, but I think he's gonna be 18 by the next movie anyway. If it depends. If they jump straight off the bat of Far From Home, he'll still be 16. But if they go in real time, he'll be 18.
hmm
So it's an interesting one. But I don't think they should go real time with something like this.
No,
no.
they don't need to do that anymore, especially since it's taking place in what, like 2023 now? I
Yeah,
mean,
something like that.
it's 5 years ahead of us, or 4 or 5 years ahead of us now with the time jump from Endgame. So they don't need to worry about it like fitting into the real world years anymore. I think they did that on purpose because they're like, oh, we messed up the continuity. Let's just throw it away altogether, and not worry about it.
Well, the next movie's a prequel. Two of them are Eternals, Black Widow, and then there's I think
Oh God,
Shang-Chi at some
I
point.
mean,
So yeah, I think it probably will be
Eternals
real.
is fine because that's not even taking place on Earth, anyways, right?
No,
that
it's not.
I'm talking about Black Widow. I'm not.
Fuck that movie. I'm not even gonna waste my damn time. I don't give a shit. The woman, the character is dead. I don't care what adventures she got up to between
Unless
Civil
it's
War
doing
and Infinity
Hawkeye
War.
and Black Widow and Budapest, like they keep hinting at the last like
Oh, that would be cool.
movies, I
They
don't want
Yeah.
to.
missed. No, they missed it. It's too late for that.
See, I
If they
don't
were
have a
gonna do that, that would have for the Budapest movie. That would have had to have been Phase 2. It's too late now.
mhm.
Yeah,
I don't mind prequels. If it's a good movie, I'll be happy, but I guess we'll see. I don't have high expectations, but my point is that I think everything they're doing now is trying to wait until they catch up with the real world. So I think it's going to be sort of they're going to try and get us to reach 2023 and have them at the same year.
Oh, jeez.
I can see them doing that. I mean, it wouldn't be too difficult, I don't think, because by the time the next Spider-Man movie's coming up, it's going to be 2021.
right. I'm hoping he's at least 18, 19 at that point because
They'd
I
have to go
love the
real
younger
time.
Spider-Man, but yeah, that's true.
And then at that point, it'll be 2 years of his identity being outed. So would he have been on the run? It's a tough one. But yeah, I think just to wrap up our thoughts with giving spoil. How do you wrap up your thoughts differently with spoilers?
Basically the
Um,
same way we just did. Even discussing the spoilers with you guys, it's pushing me. I mean, like for me, my time right now, for me and Aaron, it's only like 7:45 at night. I mean, shit, I might go watch it again tonight. I don't know.
oh, I'd love to.
I was
I
gonna
love
watch
it.
Homecoming tonight, but I'm going over to my girlfriend's house, so I'm not doing that now. But I'm gonna rewatch Homecoming soon, just to be like, oh yeah, there's that reference again, or oh, that's how they built on
Yeah,
that, you know?
I knew that's the arc they were heading for, and that's what I always said to these Iron Boy Jr. guys. But just seeing
Iron
the way Mysterio was, just seeing the way Mysterio was and Peter's arc and everything in this movie, I was right all along. Homecoming built Peter up to be an independent hero, and that arc continued in Far From Home, and it came to its conclusion. And yes, it took 4 appearances for Spider-Man to have his Uncle Ben moment, but I think it was much more impactful than the rushed hack job we got the first 2 times.
Yeah, the whole origin story of Ben dying.
Damn.
It's my fault that Uncle Ben has died, and therefore I must be a hero. It's just such a flimsy
Now he's,
because
now
it
he's gonna be
sets
a hero because that's what Tony expected of him, and that's way more impactful than,
yeah,
oh, I might have killed my uncle.
it sets it up to be more than just I'm guilty. It's much more, well, I'm a hero and I have a responsibility in this world to
I love
do
how
the
he
right
said
thing.
responsibility when he was talking to Beck. Like, we almost got the great power, great responsibility.
Just
I'm
never
so
say it.
glad we didn't.
Just
If
never
they
say it.
I
if they
don't
say
want
it
to hear.
word for word, my skin will shrivel and my entire body will invert and implode on itself because it's just. And every single time I'm reading the comics and he talks back to himself and he says, "With great power must also come great responsibility." It's just
It's so
I
overplayed.
would almost love
Why?
to see them make a joke out of it. I want to see at some point Peter start saying it to like Nick
Didn't
Fury
someone?
or something, and Fury interrupts him and he goes, "Don't start with that bullshit" or something. Like
They've
you're an
already
Avenger,
done.
just
Funny.
shut up and get out there.
They did that in Jessica Jones. Someone tried to say it to her, and she just went, "Oh, get the fuck out of there with that shit."
Okay, can you like find that clip more, because I would actually watch Jessica Jones for that.
Hey, season
I'll
one
give it
was
a
good.
look. I'll link it to you. But yeah, I mean, I think we all love the movie. It's
Yeah.
definitely worth
Go
watching.
see it. If you oh shit, go. I hate advocating for seeing movies multiple times in theaters because I stand by. Unless you truly absolutely love it, I mean, go see something else. Support the movie industry, but this one is definitely worth seeing twice because it's just so much fun. It's the perfect summer. It's the perfect summer feeling movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's energetic. It's lively. It's got a brilliant score to go with it. The characters are
Jumped
wonderful.
right
It's
into
fun
it.
from the start.
And
Yeah.
literally, it jumped right into everything. I mean, I don't think a moment went by in this movie where I was bored. Something was
pacing was
always
perfect.
happening.
Okay,
Exactly.
the beginning was kind of boring with
That was trailer bait.
Fury and Hill, but I mean,
That
that
was
was
trailer
still,
bait.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they
but-
had to start somewhere. But
Yeah, but you have to set
after
up
that,
the
it picked
story
up.
somehow.
You have to what?
You have to set up the story somehow.
Oh, they could have done that in dialogue. It's the sort of thing you just put on the news in the background, and on his school trip he happens to be. They didn't have to show it like that, but that was very much trailer bit. You could tell.
Yeah.
Random town in Mexico. Let's show them every single moment that happened. Let's shoot at a
Talos.
rock monster.
Now that I know that was Talos in a scroll, though, it does make sense. I don't think Fury's that dumb.
No.
Yeah, Kyle's just like, oh shit, what do I do? Let's just use this thing.
Oh well. So well, if you guys want to hear more reviews from us and more Spider-Man stuff, feel free to subscribe and check out our Facebook page. Thanks for watching.
Yep. We still got some more Spider-Man stuff coming up. We still got, let's see, what do we got? We got Venom, we
Yep.
got Into the Spider-Verse, and then we are going to cap it off with a video of our thoughts on what we want out of the next PS4 or PS5 Spider-Man game. So stick around. We got quite a bit more Spider-Man stuff coming up.
Season 2 is
Like a
Spider-Man galore.
Spider-Man channel with other stuff thrown in. At least
Just season 2.
is.
Yeah, season 2 has basically belonged to Spider-Man.
That's fine though. It deserves to be.
True that.
All right. Thanks for watching.